they want change, they want revolution, and they decided to do it at the university where neither of them is actually enrolled.
Yeah.
And they kind of just put up a piece of paper on a small tree and sit there.
That initial idea of revolution for them is a much smaller one. It's like what they really want to do is feel like they're part of this university. So they're poor men. They don't actually have the means or the education to actually become college students. And so that those first revolutionary gestures that they do so fairly ironically, is because they want to just be a part of this campus. They want people to recognize them, to see them. And up until those flyers, they were pretty much invisible. So their first victory, their first real revolution is suddenly becoming visible members of a campus. And their victory isn't that they've changed anything, but that when they sit under this tree, people walk by them and know who they are. And that becomes their sort of great victory.
And it also becomes a curse, too, because
Yep.
then people start shooting at them
Yep.
and beating them up, and they're never quite sure who's going to be doing it.
Yeah. Well, then that's that opening phase is also leads then to Isaac the revolutionary, the figure wanting to do more. So it begins with the sort of the ironic gesture of putting up signs, and then from there it quickly evolves into wanting to demand more. I think part of his movement towards that is born out of the sense that he's been he doesn't have access to the country, to the government, to this privileged body of students who get to be students. He doesn't get to do that, and so not being able to do that, sort of antagonizes him. It provokes him to sort of greater levels of revolutionary behavior.
And they get really very embroiled in it.
Yeah.
But there's still this sort of naive kind of way about the two of them, especially when they're together. I think together they seem more naive than when they're apart.
Yeah. I'd say together they're more like young men when they're together. Suddenly when they're cast apart, and also it is very much their evolution. So they're naive and they grow progressively darker as their storyline progresses. And so you could see them, on campus pretending to, writing symbols on a wall as if there was really a way to make a bomb, which is an act of deliberate naivete. They know that's not what's happening. But to some degree, part of what they know is happening is they're losing their innocence. They know that this movement that they're becoming swept up in is going to take on greater levels of violence. And so at times when they're together, they're trying to put that on pause. They're trying to hold on to something that's not going to, that won't be as dark as the future that's waiting for them.
Let's talk about names and the importance of, because they kind of shed names fairly easily. I mean, they both sort of arrive and drop the names that they had.
What he decides to do by shedding those names is he's also really shedding the history, that comes with that. He's saying, I need to carve out a different path for myself. I need to sort of make my way in this world on different means and under different terms than what's come before me. And the only way to do that is, to some degree, to abandon the sort of history altogether, to leave not only home, but to leave all the legacies that come with home.
He allows himself to be named all the way through the book, and even sort of boyfriend is sort of a name that's almost attached to him by Helen, and he accepts that. He's kind of... Why does he do that?
He definitely has a sort of passivity, but I'd say the only person who he allows to really name him is his friend, is the one who sort of, and it's really that character of Isaac who brings him into existence, who sort of draws him out from the sort of solitary world that he's been living in, and brings him to life to some degree. And so Isaac was the one who sort of like casts him into these different roles. He does choose one name for himself, Langston, because it's the name of a writer, and that is his aspiration. But at the end, he takes this name that's been given to him, but his assumption of that name, the sort of total way in which he decides to commit himself to it by only using that name to reference himself, is a fairly deliberate act. It's not an act of passivity. It's an act of, he could just take the name, come to the U.S. and sort of call himself whatever he wants afterwards. But that is the name that he chooses to live by afterwards, and that's a choice and sort of a reflection of his commitment to his friend.
And by that point, that name has a lot of baggage.
Yeah, and that's the name that he will, the novel doesn't take him to his death, but if you saw him dying, that would be the name that he would die with.
There was always this feeling with me that Helen was 95% there, but there was a very strong 5% that was definitely not.
Well, I think part of what she has definitely towards him is she wants to treat him with a certain level of distance because she knows, so she has this sort of anxiety of what happens if she knows too much about him. So to a certain degree, she allows him to remain slightly mysterious on purpose because it's one way of not worrying that, if she knows too much, that she'll begin to realize that their lives are just too crazily different, that she actually has no means of understanding what he's gone through. And so she's afraid of that. She's afraid of getting, she wants to sort of love him, but she's afraid of knowing too much because she's not sure if the love will actually be able to bear that to some degree, if the differences won't sort of crumble despite how much she may care about him. So their relationship is, again, a sort of movement or evolution towards sort of releasing some of that fear. And then, of course, I think by the end they do begin to really explain who they are to one another. She takes Isaac into her home. She says at the beginning, imagine him ever coming over for that all too perilous family visit. Well, that visit does happen, so he does come into the home and he does get to see who she really is. And she does get to see who he really is. But like in any relationship, at the beginning, you're hesitant to lay all your cards out on the table. Sometimes you feel like you protect yourself by allowing for a certain distance.
The book is All Our Names, a novel. I've been speaking with the author, Dinaw Mengestu, and All Our Names, published by Knopf Canada.